It was certainly no ordinary day for this team full of experts in the desert when a drone captured this wreck in the middle of the desert. Chief expert Arthur noticed something amazing during a drone inspection. It was a ship in the middle of the desert. Arthur and his entire team went to the ship, and once they got there, they immediately went inside to inspect the ship. But they had no idea that what they would discover inside the ship would stay in their memories forever. Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Arthur got into the ship and immediately got chills from how the ship looked like. He hasn't seen anything like this before. It was already weird that a ship could end up in this desert, but he could have never foreseen what he was about to discover. While he was walking through the corridors, he noticed that every door was barricaded, which was quite strange because why would all these doors be barricaded? Arthur didn't find the motive in why doing so. Maybe something dangerous would be behind those doors. Arthur focused on one door in particular. There was a large door that was barricaded with heavy steel pipes and had a large sign with a skull on it that stated, "Do not enter this room. It holds much danger." Arthur hadn't seen anything like this before, but as a researcher, he was curious about what could be hidden there. Arthur experienced chills down his back and was a little bit afraid of what might be lying behind that door. But once more, he had a duty as a researcher to find out what was behind that door. Perhaps he will make the discovery of his lifetime. He must seek the help of his colleagues to open that door. When Arthur got with his team, they also reported that they were observing strange things happening on the ship. Everywhere you went, there was just this creepy vibe. Even some scientists claimed to have heard sounds coming from certain rooms. Everybody laughed because there could not be something living on this ship, right? Arthur agrees with his colleagues that it's indeed a spooky ship. He had never seen anything like this before. And how did it even get in the desert? Arthur just had so many questions, which he wanted to answer. But first, guys, I need to tell you something. Well, I'm going to show you the room that I just saw. There was this door barricaded and I saw a skull on it, but it got even weirder because there was also a light sound coming from it. We need to know what it is. Let's go. As they walked through the ship's corridors, everyone was silent because this ship really had a creepy vibe. It was so quiet, and yet it wasn't. Arthur had the impression that this ship was hiding something otherworldly, and he was determined to discover what. It was a massive ship, so it took an hour of wandering around to finally get back to that door. Once arrived, everyone who looked at the door agreed that it appeared as if something significant was hidden inside. But then suddenly something strange happened. Arthur thought maybe there was a person inside that room. It would be very strange because it seemed like this ship had been here for decades. However, he needed to give it a shot, and he started shouting, "Is someone inside there?" He did this several times, but there was no response. Arthur repeated himself several times, but there was no response. Arthur felt a little distraught. It really seemed that something big was hiding inside. It didn't really sound like a person, but it was something otherworldly that came through clearly of the loud noise coming from that room. Just as Arthur was about to repeat himself for the last time, he heard another loud noise coming from the room. Arthur couldn't resist and had to know what was in there, so he decided to force the door open. Arthur tried to kick the door open with all the strength he had. Then another researcher took over kicking. Unfortunately, even with all the hard work of the explorers, they couldn't get the door open by kicking it. They had to use a tool to open that massive door. Arthur and his team went searching for a tool that could help them to force that door open. There must be something in that ship that could help them to force that door open. Arthur rushed to every room and searched for something he could use. After searching for 30 minutes, he finally found it. Arthur saw a crowbar lying in the corner of a room, and he knew this crowbar helped him to open that door. Arthur grabbed the crowbar and called out to his team that he had found a crowbar so everyone could stop searching and return to the door. Arthur rushed back to the door out of sheer excitement. To avoid getting lost the next time they returned, Arthur and his team marked several of the corridors as they made their way back to the helicopter. Then next time they could head straight for the door and discover what was in that room. As they flew back to base camp, Arthur could think of nothing but that room. That door intrigued him so much, and he felt there was something otherworldly in it. It would be the discovery of his life, and it would make him famous. During the flight, Arthur and his crew were debating what might be in that room. because it's not something small, several people speculated that it might be a human. However, it made no comment in response to their questions. Others were consequently thinking about a creature that had never before been seen as they arrived at their base camp. Everyone quickly ran out of the helicopter and went to the workstation where they could grab all the electric saws and claw tools that could be useful to open the thick door of that mysterious room. They found everything and quickly returned to the helicopter. Once they arrived at the helicopter's pilot looked surprised. He said, "I'm not flying at this time. It's too late and too dangerous." Arthur would not accept this. He was convinced that he had found the discovery of a lifetime. They must go now. Arthur tried to convince him with all the effort he got, but unfortunately the pilot didn't yield. It was just too dangerous to fly around at this time in the middle of the desert. The pilot simply didn't want to risk his own life for it. Arthur understood the pilot's decision and agreed that they would return tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., but no later. He opened his laptop and began looking for a deserted ship that had gone missing. Time flew by as he spent nearly an hour of searching. Then, all of a sudden, he discovered something on the internet. Someone had written something about the shipwreck. A famous researcher he knew, named James, mentioned something about a ship in the desert, and it was the exact same location as where Arthur is now. Unfortunately, the content was censored, so there wasn't much written about it. However, Arthur had his connections in the research world. So let's have some phone calls, he thought. Arthur called a good colleague of his with which he did many discoveries with. He knew that this friend had even more connections than Arthur, so he might have James's number. Arthur gave him a call and explained the situation, and it turned out that he had the phone number of scientist James. Arthur explained to James why he was calling. He explained that he had discovered the ship today and told everything about the mysterious room where all the noise was coming from. Arthur noticed that James was acting a bit shadowy and paranoid. He did not sound like the famous scientist from the interviews Arthur had seen. James told Arthur not to go back. It will follow him forever and destroy his life. James asked if Arthur could promise him that he would not go back to that ship. Arthur was very surprised by this weird conversation and asked why he could not go back to that ship. Then James said, "That ship is haunted. I can't say anything more about it. It turned my life upside down. I'm in a care home now. Just promise me you won't go back. I have to hang up. Bye." Arthur felt weird about the conversation, and he was also a little bit frightened of all the things James was saying. Arthur decided not to take James's advice. Arthur is a research scientist, and maybe this could be the discovery of a lifetime. Arthur just felt it was, and he was too curious about what could be hidden in that room. The team immediately sprang into action and set the right tool set so they could force that door open. Then they started drilling, and immediately they heard that loud noise. Everyone was startled by the noise, yet everyone was determined to find out what was behind that door, so they continued drilling. Then finally, after some hard drilling work, the door fell open. Arthur slowly approached the room and used his flashlight to observe the room. And then suddenly, something large sprinted away. What was that? Arthur thought, but there was no time to waste, and Arthur went on chasing it. Arthur saw that behind that door, there were other corridors, which seemed strange to him because he thought it would only be one room. But he could clearly see something running away, so he was able to follow it. Then when Arthur came closer, he got a good look at what it could be. It seemed like a person, so Arthur shouted, "Stop, stop, stop." He or she didn't listen and just kept running away, so Arthur gave his last glimpse of the energy and sprinted as fast as he could. Arthur got close and immediately jumped on the person. He or she resisted violently, and Arthur smelled an awful smell coming from this person. Then Arthur controlled the person, and when he turned around to see the person's face, Arthur was shocked. It was the scientist who talked about the ship on the internet. Arthur was so confused about what this famous scientist was still doing here. The post on the internet was from years ago, so has he been on this ship for years? Researcher James fell in love with this ghost ship and did not want to return to civilization. Arthur asked to return with him, but James did not want to. James also did not want Arthur to reveal this to the world, and Arthur respected this and agreed not to tell anyone about it. Arthur and his team left the ship, and they were all disappointed that this discovery was not the discovery of their lifetime.